If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I'm going to sew along with you a modified Fun Bobby backpack by Sincerely Jen. This is my go-to for all the new babies that come into the world. I think this makes the absolute perfect baby bag. Not only baby bag, but of course the backpack that it's meant to be. I have changed this one up a little bit, not very much, just mainly when it comes to the straps. So the original pattern has fixed backpack straps. I have changed it up so you can take a crossbody strap, you make it as big as it will go, click it into the D-ring, feed it into an O-ring and back down, and you have the perfect length for a backpack. I have also added in crossbody strap connector so you can unhook this and then adjust it to be a shoulder bag or a crossbody bag. So I've made it into a convertible bag. It had been requested by one of the moms that I made one of these for that modification, and I just loved that modification. So you don't necessarily have to have the straps on the back. I don't know, it's great. Let me show you some of the other features of this bag. So you got two generous slip pockets on the side. You have this kind of 3D pocket. See how it kind of stands up and out from the bag? So that's a really, really fun thing that you get to learn with this bag. On the back, we have another large zipper pocket that goes all the way through. And then on the inside, I did my typical zipper pocket with overlay and two slip pockets. Seriously, look how big that bag is. I'm usually, because I make it as a baby bag, do make this in cottons with vinyl accents. These parts here are probably the toughest part to do. I walk you through how to do all of that. I still need to kind of give this bag a little bit of a press to get this cotton to set in. We leave an opening in the bottom of the bag and an opening in the bottom of the zip pocket so we can close up the bottom of the bag through the zip pocket just like I usually do. I use waterproof canvas, a 600 denier waterproof canvas as my lining, and I'm not gonna lie, that made it a little bit tough to turn. When I use cotton linings, I never have an issue turning it, so keep that in mind. Fabrics I used in this bag, I don't remember what this is called. I do have a cutting video and I do talk about these fabrics. I don't remember if I say what the name is though, but yeah, if you haven't seen the cutting video tutorial, make sure you look for that. I use a Mora charcoal faux leather for all of my accents and my straps. All of my hardware is from Emmaline bags. My zippers and zipper pulls are from blue Calla. I use Pretty in Pink Sew Foam from Galaxy Customs. And all my cotton pieces are backed with EB Fuse Light, which is a medium woven interfacing by Emmaline bag, similar to an SF101. I have a piece of Decovil Heavy in the bottom, which I also got from Emmaline bags. What else? My waterproof canvas I purchased from Fabricville. And I think that's it. How about we get to making this bag? You're going to need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, 4 D-rings, an O-ring, 2 swivel clasps, 5 number 5 zipper pulls, 4 to 6 optional purse feet, and a swivel or a slider. You'll need your handle piece, your crossbody / backpack pieces, strap, 2 crossbody connectors, 4 side pocket panels, your backpack D-ring connectors, an O-ring connector, an overlay for your handle, 2 aligning zipper pocket pieces, 4 side panel pieces, 2 exterior, 2 lining. Bottom piece, exterior has Decovil Heavy outside of the seam allowance and lining. Slip pocket piece. Okay, so 2 exterior top panels and 2 lining main panels. a back side panel, your back main bottom pieces, 2 lining pieces, and your exterior. Your front bottom main panels, 1 exterior and 2 lining, and some foam. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and make my handle and my crossbody straps off camera. If you need a class for that, down below in the description. Okay, so we're going to do our connector pieces. On all of our connector pieces, I have marked a center line. I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape here. Feel free to use some clips if you prefer. We're going to fold those long edges into that center line. And then we're going to top stitch along these with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and you will do the same for the other 4. So this is what all the connectors look like finished, and we can set those aside for now. Okay, so my bottom piece, I have decided I wanted to do 6 purse feet here. There are no purse feet in the pattern. This is just something I like to add in. So I'm measuring in 2 inches from the short side and 1.5 inches from the long side along the 2 sides. And of course in the center here, I'm marking my center and measuring up 1.5 from the long sides. And this is where I am going to install my purse feet. You can find a class on how to install purse feet down below in the description. Okay, so that's done. I like to put some duct tape over top of the prongs just to add a little extra stability and security. I'm going to also find my 4 centers on my 2 long sides and my 2 short sides. This definitely would have been easier to do before installing the purse feet, but I always forget to do this. Okay, so now we're going to work on our back bottom piece. So our lining pieces, one is slightly longer than the other. We want to work with the shorter of the 2 lining pieces. On my exterior back bottom piece on the left hand side, I'm going to put some double-sided tape. Again, if your machine is sensitive to that, feel free to use clips here. I'm going to take my zipper, make sure my pull is closing to the top, put them right sides together, and stick the zipper down along that left side over top of that tape. Then you're going to take that shorter lining panel and along one of the sides, I'm going to go ahead and put some more double-sided tape, and then I'm going to put this right sides together with that exterior piece sandwiching that zipper. And then we're going to sew these together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I strongly recommend putting on your right zipper foot here. It just helps get nice and close to that zipper and also helps ensure that you will have a nice straight zipper. Okay, so now that that's done, what we want to do now is bring these wrong sides together like so, give this a really good press, and we're going to top stitch right through where we sewn with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So that's what that looks like. I'm just going to trim up my zipper here because I cut my zipper a little bit long. Okay, so now we're going to take that lining piece that was a little bit longer than the other. We have it right side up. Again, you can use clips instead of double-sided tape here, depending on your machine's sensitivities. And we are going to stick the unsewn side of our zipper right along there. Both of these are right side up. Okay, and then we're going to take that bottom side panel And along the right hand side of that, again, I'm going to put some more double-sided tape. And then we are going to put this right sides together with that lining and zipper piece, like so, sandwiching that zipper tape. And then we're going to sew through here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We have that sewn, just that side bottom piece we're going to press open like this with the seam going towards that side bottom piece. The lining we are not pulling with this is just that piece, and we are going to top stitch that seam in place like so. Okay, so this is what that looks like. We have a functioning pocket, which is what we want, and we're going to go ahead and we are just going to baste those all together. Okay, now we're going to take our back top piece. We're going to find our top and our bottom centers. And then along that out and still find the top and bottom center of the bottom main piece as well. And then we want to bring the shorter end like so, right sides together, clip in place. Then we're going to sew across here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I've gone ahead and I've changed back into my standard foot because we are not doing a zipper anymore. I switch back and forth between my feet all the time. Trust me, it is worth the 30 seconds it takes to switch your feet around. Once that's sewn, we're going to flip that top panel up with our seam facing towards the top panel, and we are going to top stitch this through the top panel right along that seam. This is what that looks like done. Everything looks great, and our zipper works perfectly. Now we're going to work on our front panel. So we are going to take our front bottom panel. We're going to put some double-sided tape or use clips along that top side. So this is right side up. We're going to take our zipper, make sure our pull is closing to the left, and put it right side down. So now we are right sides together, stick them together along the top like so. Take one of your bottom main panel lining pieces. Once again, use clips or double-sided tape. And then we're going to put these right sides together, sandwiching that zipper tape. And we are going to sew these together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once again, I'm switching into my zipper foot. So I know this one you will definitely want to have a nice straight zipper. We are creating kind of this 3D type zipper here. You'll see what I mean by that as we get along here. We want to take this piece, flip our panels wrong sides together like so, give it a good press, and top stitch right through there. So that is all done. Now we want to take our main top panel piece, find our top and bottom centers again. Find the bottom center of our bottom panel. Again, I'm going to use double-sided tape, use clips if you prefer. And along the bottom of my top panel, I'm going to put some tape on. and we're going to put this right sides together like so along that unsewn side of the zipper. We're going to take the other bottom lining piece, and on the right side, I'm going to put some double-sided tape. And just like we have done before, we are going to flip this over and put it right sides together with the lining along that top unsewn side. Now you're going to notice that this one is shorter than the other one. That is exactly what we want, because that is going to be our guide for how we make the kind of vertical zipper, which we will get here shortly. One we're going to do different. We are not going to be top stitching this part, and you'll see why here. So you want to take that seam and you want to press it down towards the bottom. Once you have that pressed, you're going to kind of take the exterior and that longer lining piece, and you are going to line it up along the bottom with that shorter piece. So this is going to make it, you'll see here, it's going to look like we have excess fabric, which is what we want, because when we bring our zipper up like so and we match up kind of the seam, that is what's going to give us this 3D type looking zipper. So you want to be matching up, again, the bottom edges of our main panel and our longer lining panel to the shorter lining panel bottom, and that gives us the perfect kind of 3D zipper like so. It is so amazing. This is the only time I've ever done a zipper like this, and it just really adds a nice effect to the bag. So take your time here, make sure everything is nice and evened and nice, that zipper is looking nice and straight. Clip it in place. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to baste right by that zipper. See how it's kind of all vertical there? We're going to just baste down those 3 sides to hold that zipper in place. Now take a look at that. Now see how cool that is? See what I mean by when I say it's like almost like a 3D zipper? Kind of stands out in a way. It's really cool. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to take all of our exterior main panels and we want to back them with foam. So I have them all backed with foam. You may want to, especially if you are on an domestic machine, trim the foam away from the top by about 5/8 of an inch or so. I'm just going to go around and kind of thin out my foam along those seams by kind of placing, just kind of taking a little off the top, kind of cutting it at a 45-degree angle. Okay, I've already gone ahead and I did all my pockets because I do them slightly different than the pattern. So go ahead and if you need a class on those, down below in the description. Okay, so now I'm going to take my well-used pattern piece here and we need to do some markings on our 4 main panels. So I've kind of made a line here already. You can kind of see where I'm drawing out these pattern pieces. This is going to be a sewing line guide for when we go and sew the sides on. So it's very important you put these on both of the exterior panels and mark them on both of the lining panels so we can get our nice shape to the bag later on. Okay, now we're going to work on our back panel again. We want to work on our straps. So I'm lining up my pattern piece like so, and where my handles are, we're not doing the strap placement one, we're doing the handle placement. I'm just going to do a line at the bottom of that square. Because I'm doing the backpack strap different, I want to put another 1-inch line or so right and center. This is where we're going to put that O-ring where our backpack, removable backpack strap is going to come up and around. Definitely make sure these are all centered. So again, we got the 2 outside ones are for our handles and the middle one is for our O-ring. Okay, so for our O-ring connector, I've got my connector here. I'm going to take a little bit of double-sided tape on the wrong side and then put my O-ring on and fold the connector wrong sides together, like so. And I have my handle piece here, and on the bottom of all of these, I'm just going to put a small amount of double-sided tape to help hold these in place. That's the wrong side, Brandy. There we go. That's right. Okay, and then those 2 outside lines that we drew, that's where we're going to make sure our handle isn't twisted, but we're going to line up those bottoms ends like so and place them right along those lines. And then we're going to do the same with the O-ring, and then we're going to put it along that middle line that we drew. Once you have your placement good, go ahead and just base those along those raw edges with 1/8 of an inch. Now for the handle overlay, I am marking my center of this piece. I'm going to fold all of those 2 long edges into the center, just like we were doing with the connectors. Now on a domestic machine, you can definitely still use your double-sided tape here, as you will not be sewing through the double-sided tape at this point. It's just holding our overlay long ends in place until we can top stitch it in place. I'm going to take some more double-sided tape and just place it down the center of the wrong side of this. And then what we're going to do is from the top, we're going to measure down 2 inches and make a line with an erasable pen or chalk, just for guide for when we go to place this overlay on. Then we take the overlay and we're going to place it nice and centered right below those 2-inch lines, like so. And then along those folded edges, we're going to go ahead and top stitch this in place on the top and the bottom, and that is going to hide the raw edges of our O-ring and our handle. All right, so that's done, and now we're going to do our D-rings. You're going to do the D-ring connectors just like we did with the O-rings. I'm just going to use a clip on the ends because these are going to kind of hang off. Now you can use the pattern piece for your placement. I just kind of put them on, make them at an angle, and make sure the bottom right corner of my connector matches up with the bottom of my panel. It's about 1 inch or so up from the top, and clip it in place. You want these at an angle for the backpack. These do look nice and long, but it's mainly because we are using a 1/2 inch seam allowance when we sew these together, and we want to have enough to also be able to install a rivet. So these seem long because they are. So make sure they're nice and even and go ahead and base those in place. Okay, so that's done. So you can go ahead and you can trim up these connectors like so. Placement looks good. And then I'm going to go ahead and put rivets in. Again, for these connectors, make sure you're aware of that 1/2 inch seam allowance so you know you won't be sewing through that rivet. That's why I kind of marked that 1/2 inch seam allowance so I can see. I'm also going to put a rivet nice and centered, catching the handle through that overlay. This will just add a little extra security for those handles so they don't tear away. Put one there, kind of just eyeball it, one here and one here. And I'm also going to put one on the O-ring right here. So go ahead and install those rivets. So there's all my rivets. Now, yes, this does block that pocket a little bit, but it's okay. We want to make sure that our D-rings will be nice and stabilized. Right, so now for our crossbody connectors, we're putting the D-rings on just like we did with the other ones. Now, this isn't in the pattern. This is a Brandy edition. I have my 2 side panels as well. On the bottom of these connectors, I'm measuring up about 3/4 of an inch and drawing a line. And then we're going to mark the top and bottom centers of our exterior side panels. Just trimming away my foam here because I didn't trim it on this one, obviously. Okay, and we want to make sure these are centered for sure. And what we're going to do is put these nice and centered with that 3/4 of an inch overhang. Now, a nice trick here is you can draw like a little 1-inch border like so, nice and centered. So you can take your ring and just go up like so it's nice and centered, and clip it in place. And we want to make sure we do have that overhang, and we're going to base those in place. So this is what that looks like. Go ahead, put these aside for now. Right, so now we're going to work on our side pocket panel pieces. So I'm using vinyl for both of these pieces. You could definitely have a lining fabric here if you prefer. Find your top and bottom centers of all 4 pieces. And then you're going to take these and put them right sides together, clip them in place along that top curvy section. And then you're going to sew this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you'll do the same with the other pocket as well. Okay, so that's all done. So you can go ahead and trim this up to about 1/4 of an inch. Bring these wrong sides together. If you've used cotton, you can definitely take this to your iron and give it a good press. I'm going to just have to do a really good finger press, and I'm going to hold that seam in place with some clips. And once we have that seam looking really nice, we're going to top stitch along that seam and then baste the rest of it together for both pieces. Now this is what they look like done. You can go ahead and set those aside for now as well. All right, so now we're going to work on our main zipper. So I've done 2 zipper pulls. I'm going to once again use double-sided tape. If your machine's sensitive to that, use some Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape or your clips here. So I'm going to take my zipper, which has double pulls on it, so I don't have to worry about which way my zipper pulls are closing. And we're going to put this right sides together, right along the top like so. And we're going to go ahead and sew through that with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once again, I'm switching into my zipper foot, so I'm guaranteeing that I'm getting nice and close to the zipper teeth without sewing through the zipper teeth, as well as getting a nice and straight zipper. Okay, so that is all done. Now we want to do this, take our lining piece, and I've already put some double-sided tape along the top. Now we are going to put this right sides together with this, matching up that center and sticking it in place. Again, you can use clips here as well. Now we didn't do this all in one go because we are going to be sewing this on a little different. For this pattern, we do need to make sure our lining pieces and our exterior pieces can be separate from one another when we go to sew the main panels together. So on the wrong side here, we are going to mark in a 1/2 inch from those short kind of wing sides here. And we are only going to sew this in between those lines with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, leaving those 1/2 inch unsewn. All right, so that's done. Make sure that they are free of each other by that 1/2 inch. Go ahead and turn these wrong sides together, give it a good press, and we're once again going to mark with an erasable pen a 1/2 inch in from each side because we are only going to top stitch in between those lines we just drew from that 1/2 inch mark to the other 1/2 inch mark. Okay, so that is done. Again, I'm just double checking that they are free of each other, which they are. We're going to do the exact same thing with the other side of the zipper and the other 2 main panels. Okay, so this is what that looks like so far. Now we are going to attach our side panels. So again, we want to kind of tuck our lining piece out of the way, take our exterior side panel and match it up nice and centered, making sure we are not clipping in the lining pieces here. We want to be sewing just the exterior pieces together, and that is why we sewed a 1/2 inch from each end. So you're going to want to make sure these are nice and centered, make sure that connector is nice and centered with that zipper. Clip it in place and take this to the machine, making sure the lining is held out of the way, and we are going to sew across here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, so that is done, as you can see. Now we're going to flip this over like so. Still make sure that the lining panel is held out of the way, and we are going to top stitch through there with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure we are not catching that lining. So that is all done. We still have the lining free and clear, which is what we want. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a rivet catching that connector right there, making sure we are not catching the lining pieces, and do the same with the opposite side. So there's my rivets. Now it's time to connect the lining sides. Now this feels super awkward, but it really is worth the effort, trust me. So just like we did with the exterior, we're going to put the linings right sides together. And you're going to notice that part of where the zipper is, the lining is kind of folded under from the seams. That is what we want. There will be a hole there, and we will be closing that up shortly. So go ahead and sew across just the lining with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, now that that's done, we want to close up that hole, but we do not want our exterior and our linings to be sewn together on the sides. So we are going to fold our linings and our exterior like so, our side panels, wrong sides together, And we are only going to stitch through where the zipper was or where the connector is. We're just going to go over our top stitching. That's going to close up that hole, but we're not going to go all the way across, just where that zipper is. So that is done, and you'll see on the lining side we only have like a 1-inch section there. That is perfect, and that hole is all closed up, and our panels are still free and clear of one another, which is exactly what we need to do. You'll do the same with the opposite side. Okay, so our sides are all done. Now what we want to do is fold our lining out of the way because we need to attach our exterior side pocket panels. So you're going to match up the bottom center. These pockets are wider than our side pieces. That is so we can have a billowing pocket. So once you have that bottom in place, you're going to continue and match up the raw edges to the side panel like so. Bring up the other side too. Make sure they're about evenly centered. Like this, clip that in place, and you're just going to billow the extra fabric out in the middle. Once you have that done, you'll go ahead and you will base this in place and do the exact same thing with the opposite pocket, making sure you are not catching that lining panel. Okay, so that's complete. You can start seeing how the bag is starting to come together. Now what we want to do is attach the bottoms of the lining and the exterior. So we're going to take our exterior bottom and one panel of our exterior front, we'll use exterior front here, clip them together, make sure the lining is flipped out of the way. We're not worrying about the lining just yet. Clip this in place, and then we're going to sew this together with a 1/2-inch seam allowance. Once that's done, we want to kind of push the seam towards that bottom panel, and then we are going to top stitch through the bottom with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Attach the other side. We're going to bring our back panel together with the unsewn side of the bottom. We're going to clip this in place. This one's a little bit more tricky when we get to the top stitching, but I'll show you what we do once we get there. So clip this in place and sew this together with a 1/2-inch seam allowance, but do not top stitch it yet because we will be doing it in a little bit different of a way. This is the part I was telling you about because we do need to top stitch this. We want to make sure that that seam is going towards the bottom panel, and we are going to be top stitching this through a tube. Now this does feel awkward. Take it nice and slow. You got this. It's not hard. You're just going to be starting at that one end, and you're going to be pulling the tube kind of away from yourself so you can see where you are stitching.
And you can see how I'm doing it here. I'm just kind of making sure my seam is going the right way and sewing through that tube and kind of pulling my fabric through as I go so I can see where I'm stitching. So just take it nice and slow. You've got this. The bottom is on, so we're going to do the exact same thing with the lining side with just a couple differences. So we are going to leave a very large turning hole on the side we attached to the slip pocket. So we're going to leave this part open, attach that to that side, and only sew where those in between those lines. But on the opposite lining side, you're going to go ahead and sew the full way. So, but you're using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So this is what that looks like. Now we can do the tab or the sides, and this is where we needed everything running free of each other. It is definitely easier to do the lining pieces first before you do the exteriors. So match up that side bottom snip to the main bottom panel snip like so, making it nice and centered. And you're going to kind of pinch up. This is where those lines that we drew are going to come into play, because when we get to these top sections, we are going to follow those sewing lines. So along those sewing lines, I believe is only like a 1/2 inch seam allowance or so. You're going to follow that to get the shape and to close up these sides. And then as we get further down on the lining pieces, you're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So clip these all in place all the way around. Kind of pinch where we have those lines drawn, because it's going to close all of this up, and this is what gives this bag its remarkable shape. Once you have that all clipped, we're going to again start and follow those lines at the top, right along here, branch out to a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then follow the lines on the other side, making sure you are not sewing through your exterior pieces. We are only sewing through the lining panels, so you're going to see me kind of pulling the exterior pieces away. Also, make sure you're not accidentally catching your zipper. Having your zipper open at this point also will help get nice and close to where you need to be. So take this nice and slow. It's actually really only hard and awkward to do at that very top piece because you're working with very little space, but follow those lines and you should have this fine. this is that side done. We followed those lines. It looks good. You'll repeat the exact same thing with the other lining side. And then you're also going to do the same thing with the exteriors, except for you're not going to branch out into that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You will just keep it at an 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you'll follow the lines at the top, right here, and all the way around with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You'll do this for the remaining 3 sides. So I thought I'd show you just what that looks like doing the exterior side. This bag is a monster. It's starting to block my camera because it's so big, but I hope that you can still see what I'm doing. So again, with my exterior, I'm holding my lining out of the way, following that line at the top, and then continuing all the way around with that 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now that we have all 4 sides on, this is what that looks like. You can go ahead and trim your seam allowances up to 1/4 of an inch or so, but do not trim your seam allowances where our connectors are. And then go ahead and turn this through the opening in the bottom of the bag. Now I'm not gonna lie, because I used waterproof canvas, I used a 600 denier waterproof canvas here. This did take a little bit of time for me to turn. So I myself do prefer cotton linings for this purpose. It just makes things easier to turn, but I mean, not a big deal. Just take it slow and you can squish this bag. Doing this in all vinyl might have really been hard, so I'm glad that I chose to do it in cotton and vinyl. So go ahead, and once you get that through, push out all of those corners. Make sure where we had followed those lines in that stitching that we got that nice sharp point like so, that those should create, and everything was caught. Check all of your seams, because we do not want to have to turn this through again once we've sewn it shut. So double check everything and then go through and push out all of those seams nice and crisp. Trim away any runaway threads like I have going on here. Stuff that lining into the bag, pop it out like so. Make sure it looks good before we prepare for closing up that lining, and she's looking pretty good. All right, now to close it up, what we want to do is reach to that zipper pocket that we left the opening in the bottom, pull that lining out, reach into that hole there and grab the opening in the bottom of the lining and pull it up and through that pocket. Again, this is a little bit harder to do with waterproof canvas, but hey, we're gonna get it done. Gonna go ahead and clip that opening shut, and then we will sew across this opening, closing up the bottom with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's done. Go ahead and push your lining in, take a peek to make sure there's no holes and it looks good. Once it does, you can fold in the raw edges of your zipper pocket, clip them in place, and then you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna top stitch this shut with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Push that zipper pocket back into the pocket, making it nice and flat inside. Take a look, make sure all the seams look good, everything matches up. Your 3D zipper looks amazing. And that's it, guys, we are done. So this is where we added in the crossbody strap to make it more convertible, and then being able to have the detachable strap. All you have to do is make it as big as it'll go, clip the one side in, bring it through that O-ring and to the other side, and trust me, it is the perfect size backpack strap. Admire your work, and then we're done.
All right, that's it, that's all. I really do hope you like my slight modification I made to this. Jenny has such amazing patterns, so thank you again, Jenny, for allowing me to make this tutorial. If you are watching this right to the end, I would like you to leave me a red heart emoji down in the comments, just so I can see who is watching it right to the end, just out of curiosity. So make sure you comment below with a red heart if you've gotten to this point. If at some point you did like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you know when I have posted new content. If you'd like to support my channel further, you can always buy me a coffee. That is linked down below in the description. Also check out my membership side. There may be some sew-along classes that may interest you. Anyways, until the next one, I'll catch you guys later. Bye!